Okay, so I'm finally gonna do this ding dang video on Worm Arc 19. For transparency's sake, I'm on 22. I'm very early on 22. I haven't read that much, but I've read 19, I've read 20, I've read 21. I will probably talk a little bit about 20 and 21 here anytime it feels applicable, but for the most part, I'm just gonna keep this to 19. A lot happened in Arc 19. Arc 19 is one of my favorite arcs in the story so far. I think it has a genuine good faith effort to be my favorite so far. I remember when I was done with it, like, so much shit happened that I was, like, texting my friend that got me into it. I was like, dude, this was amazing. This happened, this happened, this happened. I forgot to include that Siberian died. Like, that is such a major thing to happen in this arc, and so many other things happened I completely forgot about it. But before we get into a lot of the specifics, we need to talk about Parallel Universe. I know I'm going out of order, I just kind of wanted to make the Parallel Universe joke, but it is something we need to talk about, so let's just go ahead and do it. This multiverse saga of Worm, I think, has a lot of potential. Again, I said it before, I think the Traveler's backstory is probably just, like, one of the best premises I've ever heard. Like, that sounds like it would be a phenomenal isekai. And looking ahead to some of the other arcs that I've read, they're really talking about the multiverse. You know, at the end of this, that giant portal is mentioned. I think they refer to it later as the Hole, and yeah, we now have access to another world. And as we see in some of the later arcs, like, we don't think human beings are in this world. The resources are insane, and Brockton Bay is now, like, the convergence point between one world and the other, which means this city is about to be huge. A lot of people are going to be coming here. A lot of other villains, a lot of competitors are going to be coming here. We have, like, both hero and villain. We need to make sure that the wrong people don't come to our city. And if they do, that we are able to protect it. I think that's all, like, really cool and really interesting. So, the passengers, I think, are a really cool idea, at least from what I understand about them. Which at this point is just, if you have a power, it means a passenger bonded with you. The passenger is the thing that gives a person their powers, and as Tattletale says, and we're kind of assuming, her power is not infallible, but we are assuming that anything Tattletale says here is either 100% true or is very much on the right track. So we're assuming that when the passenger bonds, they're the ones who can, like, mess with a person's psychology or with their I guess it's like, yeah, their mental physiology or their biological physiology. The reason Rachel thinks like a dog is the result of her passenger, not the result of her trigger event. The fact that some people have required secondary powers that prevent them, like the Manton effect, that prevent them from hurting other people or hurting themselves, is something the passenger does, presumably to protect their host, I guess is probably the right word for it. And, like, that's cool. That's interesting. Then we get into some of the weird shit where they talk about how it's like, okay, so your power comes from your passenger, and your passenger is something from another world, and it's these, like, giant, powerful beings that can't actually cross over into our world. So the way they're able to do it is by bonding with a person. Okay, that's kind of cool, that's kind of interesting. And then we get to, so the source of your power, it is not the passenger themselves. Okay, so the passenger is why you have the power, but let me talk about it like this. In Arc 18, in Jessica's interlude, Eidolon is talking to her about how my power is dying. Like, it is draining. Like, whatever well of power that I can tap into, it's almost dry. That well does not come from your passenger. it comes from the multiverse. Like, there is a version of you that you are just sapping energy from. You are essentially using the rest of the multiverse as a battery. I would presume the reason Eidolon, because no other character has talked about this, no other Cape hero or villain, I would assume the reason Eidolon is running so low on power is just because the nature of his ability is he's using multiple abilities at once, so it probably just is a lot more draining, which I think just kind of makes sense even without the multiverse thing, but it is something that just kind of made me go, okay. I don't think... Oh, sorry, dogs want to come inside. I'll be right back. Come on, doggo. Journey, are you coming in? Yeah. Good girl. Good girl, Journey. Sorry about that. I totally should have just paused the video instead of getting up, so you didn't have that awkward spot, but it is what it is. I don't think this is necessarily a bad idea. To me, it feels a little unnecessary, because my brain, when you're kind of talking about this, like, all right, your passengers, where you get your powers from, your passenger is the one that, like, warps your physiology, I would just think, oh, okay, the passenger just is the source of your power. It is, like, I would assume if they're, like, these giant multiversal creatures, that maybe they just are, like, pure energy, and anytime Taylor uses her power, it sucks a little bit out of her passenger. Being these giant, again, multiversal beings, they have a lot of energy. Like, you can use a lot of them, but it will run dry. And maybe, like, some of the side effects. For example, when Tattletale uses her power too much, she gets migraines. Maybe that's not just a balancing effect, like, from the writer. It is this is essentially your passenger saying, you've used too much of my energy, like, caution kind of thing. And I think that's cool. I think that's kind of interesting if that would be the case, but it's not. And again, it's not bad. I just think this would have been maybe a little bit simpler, but maybe it'll be a point later where it's, no, the fact that you are taking energy from other parts of you, once we really, because I don't know how deep into the multiverse we really start to explore. That might be important later. Then there's the other thing where, for example, they talk about Marissa, Sundancer, and how Sundancer, as like a required secondary power, she's, oh, sorry, I had a notification, I didn't know what it was. She's essentially immune to high temperatures, which would make sense if you can, the power of the sun in the palm of my hand, but you can get burned by it, like, your power would be fucking worthless. So I think, so I guess they're kind of talking about, like, yeah, like, that just makes sense. Again, like, your passenger bonds to a person, says, I want to be here for a while, this is my power, let me make some changes to you so you can use it effectively. So apparently, the reason Mars is immune/resistant to high temperatures is because the burn she would have sustained go to another version of her. Or it's like, oh, well, it's not even that she's resisting the high temperatures, it's just the high temperatures just aren't there. They're going to another version of her, or like another version of this spot in another world, and hey, if someone's over there, they're fucked, but it is what it is. Why? I'm not gonna lie, I don't see the point. Again, maybe when we like really get into the multiverse, that's gonna be something that's super interesting. And I could see it if it's like for certain powers, I get it, like Scapegoats. Scapegoat has a really interesting ability. It's like, I can heal people. There's hoops to jump through. So first off, like, because Taylor can't see for most of this arc, what was the thing that fucked her up? Was that from Echidna? Was it something from Coil? I think it was something from Coil. So I don't 100% remember what it was. But her eyes are fucked up. Scapegoat heals her eyes. And it's not just cool, they're fixed. Her injury goes on to Scapegoat. It'll be like that for a while until it heals off of him. Also, it's not just, I took your injury and you're okay. It's, I took your injury. I also had to search the multiverse for a version of you that was very similar to how you are now, with working eyes, and just kind of take theirs. So now you're okay. That is kind of getting into the, yeah, it's like for your required powers to work, you have to fuck up another version of the multiverse. But that's just a, like, that one doesn't bother me because it's explicitly how his power works. It's weird, but I think it's kind of fun. But I'm like, wait, so the reason secondary powers, and like the reason you're not affected by some of your shit is because it goes and fucks up someone else? Why? That, it's just, to me, it feels like it's overcomplicating the issue. You could just tell me, cool, when you, as they've been telling us earlier in the story and re-said, when you get a power, you get the required secondary powers that go with it that prevents you from fucking exploding when you use them. That's all I need. All this other shit is just, I remember reading Fate Go. I mean, playing Fate Go, but it's a VN too. And as they're explaining how, how do you pronounce it? Is it Chaldea? Yeah, it's not Chaldea. I think it's Chaldea. When they're explaining like how all that shit works, I'm just thinking to myself, it's a time machine, and we go into different points in space-time, and we're time squatting this shit. Something's going on, like Beethoven wants to become a professional wrestler instead of a musician, and we gotta go back in time and make sure he becomes a musician. That's not a Fate thing. That is an episode of Time Squad that I remember. It's like the only one I do. I don't know if I should rewatch Time Squad or not. But anyways, I'm like, alright, like that is the point. And they like go into detail about this is how time travel works in this story. These are all the hoops we have to jump through. We have to make sure that like someone is constantly looking at your body and like verifying your existence and all that shit. And I'm just thinking, you're explaining it to the point where it stopped making sense a while ago. Like, I get it. You want to explain, like, you got your own magic system and science shit that you want to do. You want to make sure that people understand how cool your world building is. I get it. Sometimes it works to just keep something simple. And like I've said a few times in this video, I don't know how important this is going forward. I don't know if later in Worm or in Ward, the fact that you are fucking up other universes and using them as batteries, or the required secondary effects are harming them, is going to be super important, and it's going to be really cool and really interesting. And if it is, I might be willing to retract my criticism here. But I'm like, it's it's fine. So let me talk about the shit I really like in this arc. Because, oh boy, there's a lot. Oh, before I forget. While I'm on the subject of passengers, I do have a theory. My theory is that that's what Scion and the Endbringers are. Because the Endbringer, I don't remember if it was in this arc, I think it was, where Tattletale says, I don't think the Endbringers were ever human. They are not humans that got trigger events or humans that got cauldroned. They were always like this. So my theory is that they are passengers that are in the world and are just going off. And when they talk about Scion, because I remember, was that in this? I think it was in the last arc. It was the Kevin Norton, the most powerful man in the world interlude. How no one knows what the fuck Scion is. Like, is he human? Is he an angel? Is he a fallen angel? Maybe he's also a passenger. Or like he's a passenger who bonded to a person. And they're more multiversal concept than man at this point. I don't really know how this works. That is my current theory about why Scion is so inhuman, why no one knows what the fuck he is, and also why he's so powerful. So just getting into some of the cool and neat shit, Shatterbird escapes, so Regent no longer has that meat puppet, and I don't really know what happened to her. it made it sound like she was kind of working with Echidna, but I don't know if Echidna... Even Regent's like, okay, so I can't feel her anymore, which means she's either dead or she's out of my range. There's a non-zero chance that she's just gone, and that's a really important tool that we can't use anymore. It also might be that she escaped, and that's a problem, and like that's more interesting to me, because it's also it's double interesting, because one, okay, like we're gonna have to fight her again, and she was a fucking problem, and now she has a personal vendetta against Regent. I kind of want to see how that plays out. Two, how's Jack gonna react when she comes back? Like, would Jack... Because it's something they talk about as part of the 9. It's like, yeah, when you fuck up, there are penalties. You don't always kill you, but there are penalties if you lose, if you fail. See, Cherish. Would Jack be the kind to go, okay, look, Shatterbird, you were captured, you were used as a pawn of another piece. This is just pathetic. You lost. You failed. There is no coming back. There is no redemption arc. And just absolutely shatters this woman's confidence. Because I talked about the carrot and the stick. That is her carrot and stick. It's her ego. Would he do that and then just kill her? Would he just have Bonesaw do something? It's like, hey, you hated being that guy's puppet? Bonesaw, make her our meat puppet. And then Bonesaw being Bonesaw goes, the neck bone's connected to the big toe. I don't fucking know. Or, would Jack go, you know what? You failed. You were captured. You being used as Regent's puppet, that is your punishment because your carrot and your stick. I know how that affected you. But the fact that you were able to escape and come back, respect. There is no further punishment. Welcome back to the team, Shatterbird. And even look, you're the one who nominated Hookwolf. Hookwolf's the one we took to be our new permanent member. Good shit. All is forgiven. Now let's do our clone army thing. We'll talk about that later because, what the fuck? Like, oh man, there's gonna be some problems later in the story. That's a thing that happens. Skitter's in this, like, Lotus Eater machine when she's inside Echidna, but then Weld saves her. Weld, being the metal boy, is just, like, can't be absorbed, so he's able to get the Undersiders out. There's this scene where one of the Skitter clones, because, like, they can see her face, and that's a little important later in Arc 20. Not as important, because I specifically remembered that thing that Dragon did, where she's like, okay, I think this person is Skitter. Let me just kind of make a note of that. And yeah, that came back. Arc 20 was so good, too. It was so, like, Arc 20 is wild, because not a lot happens in terms of quantity of events. In terms of the quality of events, it is huge, and I loved it. This Arc 19 is great because it's got quantity and quality. But one of the Skitter clones talks about killing Calvert. I don't remember if it said that. I don't think it said that Calvert was Coil. It's just like, yeah, we killed the head of the PRT. What are you going to do about it? And Weld kind of hesitates for a second, but he still saves her. So you get this really entertaining scene where after everyone is saved and everyone's just kind of chill, Skitter goes, okay, I want to have a functioning, healthy relationship with the PRT. Which I don't remember if she pointed out Kaiser, but it's something I remember from Kaiser when the ABB shit was happening. He's like, look, I've talked to the heroes. We've agreed on a truce. We can still do our essential businesses, but we can't go too far into villain activity right now until the ABB have been taken care of. And you did kind of get the, again, like the whole cops and robbers thing, you got this sense from Kaiser that, well, hero and villain, we do illegal shit, we do fucked up shit, like, I'm a filthy racist Nazi. Out of context, that sounds really bad for me to say in a video. But I also understand the game. I understand the rules. There's things you do, things you don't do. And then, the Empire ended up getting outed by Coil, and then everything went to shit. Was this the arc with Crusaders interlude? No, I think that was one of the, like, several in 18. I don't remember what the interludes were here. It's Parahumans Online, Emma, I think a Blasto. That might have been it. There might be a fourth. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting way too ahead of myself. Where was I? Blah, blah, blah. Calvert. Taylor. Oh, yeah. Functioning relationship with the PRT. Thank you. So, Taylor goes, okay, so my clone said some fucked up shit, and if they think I killed their boss, that's a problem. It's also a problem because I actually fucking did it. But I need to go explain everything. I need to explain that he's Coil. I need to explain that he was potentially connected to Cauldron. That Cauldron is a thing. I don't know what they're aware of in terms of that, but I think that's important going forward. And she specifically says to herself, I also need to understand the importance of silence, because sometimes not saying anything is the best thing you can do. Because if I start talking, I might be digging a grave that wasn't even there in the first place. So she goes up to Miss Militia and Weld and is like, hey, so my clone said some shit and I want to clear the air. And Weld immediately is like, I understand. Psychological warfare, they're saying shit to, like, maybe try to out us, turn us against each other. It's fine, Skitter. I don't believe the clone. My boy gives her an out. And Taylor, seconds ago thinking sometimes silence is the best thing, is given an out and says, I'm not taking the out. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I murdered your boss. I shot him in the fucking head. I can show you the spot where his brains are still on the floor. Believe it or not, Miss Militia and Well don't take that very well. She's like, guys, it's okay. He was Coil. He was a supervillain. So you're admitting that you killed a man. No. It's so weird. Like, I will say this. I understand Taylor's strategy. I want to have this functioning relationship. And if something has come up that can affect that, I would rather take care of it now. I have the chance, like, Weld is giving me an out, and I can take it, but that would be a lie. And if I'm, like, the supervillain queen of the city, which is kind of wild to think about. It's like, you look back at Arc 1, you're like, yeah, she didn't know what the fuck she was doing. Like, she's gonna run the city one day. Also, I remember reading a comment for Arc 1, where someone was saying, it's like, it's so weird going back to Arc 1 and seeing Taylor has her bugs out, but she's talking about how blind she is and how she can't see anything. I'm like, yeah, that is fucking weird, because here she can't see shit with her eyes, and then she's like, I know where everything is because of my bugs. I just think that's really neat. I understand her wanting to, like, I'm going to clear the air, I'm going to tell the truth, because if this is built on a lie, it is going to crumble, and I don't want that to happen. At the same time, essentially telling them, look, your boss is dead, he was also a supervillain, I have no way of verifying that, I killed a man, but don't worry, he was really, really bad, also part of a conspiracy that I can't prove either. You need help taking that grave, Skinner? Like, I don't know. I think she's doing a pretty good job on her own. It's wildly entertaining to watch. And then when it goes pear-shaped as you expect, like, not as pear-shaped as it could have, but I'm sorry, it was so funny to read. Then you've got Lisa, bless her heart. He was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that Cauldron is, like, super deep in the PRT. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna out this. So she sees the Triumvirate. We got Legend. We've got Eidolon. We've got Alexandria. I don't remember exactly what she says, but it's some shit about, like, hey, look, Cauldron's here. And they all look at her, and she's like, yep, confirmed. I knew it. I figured it out. Taylor is not happy about this. She's like, Lisa, come here for a second. I understand. No, okay, so I remember reading this arc and I immediately thought of Shrek 2. Like almost any time Tattletale was doing something and Skitter was just face-palming, it was, Donkey, you have the right to remain silent. What you lack is the capacity, because Tattletale had none. He was like, I know all about this. I know all about this. I'm going to share everything. I'm going to just pontificate about parallel universes for a second. There is a point where when like a lot of the big wigs of the PRT are having this conversation and Tattletale's trying to say, look, I need to tell you guys about Cauldron. And Miss Militia, who just believes that Tattletale is trying to like divide the PRT, which is kind of accurate because that's exactly what she's trying to do, and also has really no good faith basis to trust Tattletale, after all the shit that happened with like Panacea and Victoria. 2, just the fact that no one really knows how her ability works, and the fact that she just constantly has information that she shouldn't. And 3, Skitter just told her like, hey, I may or may not have murdered your boss, but he was also part of this giant conspiracy. Maybe you shouldn't trust everyone in the PRT? It's like, okay, so one of your teammates actively is trying to drive a wedge between us, and you, the one with an MO of this, is doing it too. She literally puts a gun in Tattletale's mouth. That went hard as fuck. She's like, you need to shut the fuck up. I am sick and tired of dealing with your team and your bullshit. We are working together on this. We have a truce. If you keep talking, I am considering this a violation of the truce. And honestly, in context, kind of understandable. And I will put a kill order on you, and I will pull the fucking trigger myself. And Tattletale's response to this is, I'm gonna keep talking. Don't put a kill order on my team. This is on me, but I'm gonna say my shit. I'm gonna talk my truth. And she does, and she doesn't get killed for it. And her truth is like, Cauldron is a thing. This is what they do. They got people with fake powers, and the Mirrodin, because his name wasn't like Merlin. He does like the kind of dimension-y shit. We saw him in Arc 17. He's like, the fuck is a Cauldron? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, you're telling the truth. I believe you. You're Gucci. Like Case 53's, that's Cauldron shit. Blah 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 blah. She's outing what she can. Legend shows up, and it goes, guys, she's not wrong. I will say this. Yes, Cauldron is a thing. Yes, giving people powers. My powers are Cauldron. I did not get a trigger event. It is something that we started, Triumvirate, we're all involved, to stop the Endbringers. We needed more people with powers so we can fight this shit. There are some questionable elements, and I won't deny that, but is also really downplaying the questionable elements. It's like, okay, Cauldron has been outed, not as big of a problem as Tattletale was making it seem. Good old PR damage control. Truce can continue. Other things that go on, Gru is just kind of written out of the arc, because after the Echidna shit, he's not doing well, and Skitter's like, I saw my trigger event in there, and like different variations of it, and a lot of the stresses I've been under. Oh my god, I don't want to imagine what Brian had to see. Did he have to get tortured again? You go rest, buddy. You need this. You've earned this. Which is kind of sad, because I'm like, yeah, we really didn't get much of Brian in this arc. And then he's just like, I don't think he was in arc 20 at all. He got a little bit in 21. I don't remember if he got anything in 18. It's like, man, he's not gotten a lot of screen time, but given how volatile his condition is, it makes sense in context. I'll put it like that. I'm like, I completely understand. I, as a fan, am a little disappointed that I've just gotten, like, no Gru in a couple arcs, but I get it. Imp ends up going with him, so she's out of the arc, too. I don't really remember what Regent does for the rest of it. Like, he's still there, he just doesn't really contribute much. And this is mostly Skitter and Tattletale. So, what happens after that? Let me actually look at my notes. Let's see. Oh, yeah, they blow up Coil's base. I forgot about that. They self-destruct the base, try to fuck with Noelle. Noelle does end up getting out of it because, yeah, like, no one really thought it was going to kill her, but it would hopefully stop her for a bit. She does. Talk with them. Cauldron. Gru leaving the gun in Tattletale's mouth. Blah, 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 blah. What the fuck does that... Oh, that's Legend Admits Cauldron. Cool. Okay, yeah, now we get into the fights. Now we get into the Dynasty Warrior shit. So what Echidna does is she just starts, like, gobbling up people, grabbing people, making clones, fight your clones. Which... There's that little bit of part of me that's like, okay, this is not quite what happens in Mewtwo Strikes Back. It's a little Mewtwo Strikes Back, and I mean, the best possible way. This was cool as fuck. But I was like, okay, this is actually Dynasty Warriors, though. It's like, here's a bunch of enemies. You've got superpowers. Go. And it's really cool. It's really dope. Then she gets... Did she get Alexandria or Eidolon first? I think she got Alexandria first. And it was really cool because they talk about how it's like the clone, like the colors are inverted. Like Alexandria, she has the lighthouse as part of her costume, and now it's upside down and it's inverted and it's this perversion of her. Like, that's really neat. And then everyone can see her face and they recognize her as the head of the PRT. And I really liked that because that's kind of something they talk about, like the checks and balances. The capes are the ones on the ground, but the bigwigs calling the shots are regular humans. Those are the checks and balances. That's not a fucking thing, actually. And people are not happy about that. And then she ends up getting Eidolon. So you got an Eidolon clone, and they talk about the same thing, like how his colors are different, and he's doing all kinds of fun, crazy shit with his powers. What was he doing? It wasn't gravity. I don't remember if I wrote it down, because previous Eidolon was using gravity. He was using something. No, I don't think I wrote down what he was doing. That's kind of shitty. But the clone Eidolon undoes all of Legend's damage control. It's like, yeah, y'all want to know about Cauldron? Let me tell you about Cauldron. We have been experimenting on people. We've kidnapped people. We have kidnapped people from other worlds to experiment on. We sell powers. The Case-53s, those were... like the old versions, that sometimes shit still happens, not as often anymore. Thank you, human experimentation. The Case-53s are just kind of, like, these are the ones that got fucked. And honestly, we don't care about them that much. We sell powers, we've sold Case-53s, and then you've got, oh, I don't remember her name, it was like Scully or something. The big girl with, like, the shovel is super offended by this. As you would imagine, Weld, like, goes quiet after hearing this. It was so, like, there was a line from Clockblocker when he's talking to Taylor, he just says, "We lost." And she's trying to say, like, no, like, there's still hope. We can still beat Noelle. Like, I'm not talking about Echidna. I'm talking about in general. The whole point of the PRT is... hope, is the fact that, like, if there's a really big problem, an Endbringer, a gang, some incredibly powerful S-level threat, we can take care of it because we're a united front. And now that's gone. We've lost. And I remember, like, in Arc 18, we're getting Clockblocker's perspective when he's talking to Jessica, and he's like, look, like, I'm so frustrated seeing the villains win. Not just because it hurts my pride that I'm losing, But it's because, like, I really start to wonder, are we doing the right thing? Are there other ways that we could help people? Like, if we weren't so tied up in bureaucracy. I know I'm using my power for good, but could I be doing more? I don't know. And it's like, I was taught, like karma and consequences, and I've lost my best friend. I've lost so many people and so much being a hero. And I look at the villains and, like, they don't lose anything. This is bullshit. And then, like, there's the really interesting conversation you have with Skitter in Arc 18. And then here he's just, like, broken. I know it's so bad for this dude. Poor Dennis. Alexandria and Eidolon are still, like, trying to give... I think it's specifically after they kill Noel, Pin and that. Are, like, trying to give orders and strategies. And every other hero's like, why the fuck would we listen to you? I'm still the director of the PRT. Yeah, and you shouldn't be. Fuck off. Like, it was so interesting. It's like the little bit of PRT fallout I've seen since. Like, I just want to see more of it. It's like, it reminds me of why I like Arc 8 so much. It's not just all the cool shit with Leviathan fighting the Endbringer. It's that bit at the end where Taylor and Panacea have this really interesting conversation. You've got Taylor finding out about Sophia and how, like, any of those moments where they talk about the label between hero and villain and where's the line drawn. And then you got all the shit with Armsmaster, the falling out with the Undersiders, and where do we go from here? Arc 19, which also you're basically fighting an Endbringer with Echidna, not quite, but you know what I mean? I like it. It's like, it's reminding me of why that arc was so good. Let's see. So you get that. You get that. Faultline and her crew show up. Labyrinth is able to open the giant portal. The Undersiders are like, look, we just want to go home. So Sundancer, Echidna's best friend, is the one to kill her. She makes the sun fucking vaporizes Echidna. I just want to go home. So, the Travelers, without Echidna and without Trickster, go home through the portal. And specifically, Ballistic is like, hey, what happened to Trickster? He's going to the birdcage. Good. We don't want him. I loved that. Which also I kind of go, ooh, next time we see the birdcage, we'll get to see Trickster. That might be really fun. Like, how would him and Panacea interacting go? It's like, I don't know if that would just be, like, fine, or if, like, maybe that could be a really fun relationship to see develop. I don't know. That might be neat as fuck. But yeah, he's in the birdcage. The Travelers go home. After all the shit that happens, the Triumvirate are like, look, we have to resign after this. There's no coming back from this. They talk about how, like, we got to keep a lot of this confidential, and other people are saying, fuck you, none of this is going to be confidential. Who the fuck do you think you are to have any authority at this point? And the arc ends, again, aside from the interludes, with Taylor and Lisa. And Taylor going, Lisa? I know you hate it when people call you stupid or call you an idiot, so I'm not going to do that. But do you want to explain why you were so... 38 minutes. Okay, sorry, I thought that was a 5. I'm like, been here an hour? What the fuck? You want to explain why you were so reckless and willing to let Miss Militia put a gun in your mouth and still keep talking? What the fuck was that about? Okay. Your goal, Taylor, for quite a while has been taking care of Coil. And I have said, if that's your goal, that's mine too. I will help you with it. You've talked about how you're kind of lost. You don't know what to do now that Coil's gone. I'm in a similar boat. Let me tell you about my trigger event. My brother, I think Reggie was his name, was like, my brother was like the apple of my parents' eyes. Like, they thought he was super cool, like he was really popular, like he was smart, he was athletic. I think she said he was like the captain of the football team or some shit. It's like he was the star. And as I grew up, like, I thought my brother was the coolest. And then as I got older, we just drifted apart, and I felt like we weren't really that close, and anytime we did interact, it was very surface level, like we're part of the same family, we're really wealthy, we kind of have to keep up appearances, but I don't know, like, it didn't feel special anymore. And I could tell that something was wrong. Like, he wasn't the same, like his smiles weren't the same, like something was eating at him, but I didn't care enough. It was just like, yeah, it's whatever, I can tell there's a problem, but he'll figure it out, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. What does it mean to me? Then he killed himself. And the fact that I knew something was wrong, and I didn't do anything about it, that's what frustrates me. And the fact that I know something was wrong, but I don't know what it was, bothers me. And I told my parents that I could tell that something was off, and all of their grief over what happened to him just turned into anger toward me. And one night, in my sleep, I triggered. And I woke up, and I could just learn things. Like how I learned that there was something wrong with my brother. And my family found out about my powers. And all of a sudden, Dad went from blaming me and not wanting to talk to me to, I was the apple of his eye now. He wanted to know, he wanted me to help him with the business. And I didn't want that. Because he didn't love me. He loved my power. Fuck him. Then I joined the underside. Like, then I, was like stealing and shit. I got caught by Coyle, and because I met Coyle, I ended up becoming part of the Undersiders. Then I met you. You became my project because you remind me of my brother. Like, when I saw you and how, like, weak and frail you were, I was reminded of my brother. And I thought maybe, just maybe, if I could help you, if I could save you, it would make up for me not saving my brother. And the fucked up part is, it hasn't. I have turned you from this loser into the fucking queen of this city. And it doesn't change the fact that my brother killed himself. And I don't know what the fuck to do. But, hey, there's a big ass portal over there. That's neat. Brockton Bay is going to become pretty big destination coming up. And you're the one running things on the ground. I'm the one running things back at HQ. Like, we're kind of the co-queens of the city. So I don't know. I think this is what I needed. Just to give me the next project to focus on, so I don't have to think about my brother. And then Taylor just gives her a hug. And that's how the arc ends. It really felt like we got a lot here. Echidna's gone, the Travelers are gone, Trickster's in the birdcage, we finally got Lisa's trigger event, all the crazy multiverse shit. And on top of that, the Cauldron fallout. This arc was great, this arc was loaded, and then we get the interludes. Okay, so there are 3 interludes. So the first is Blasto. Blasto is this tinker from Boston. We heard about him before. I don't know if it was quite by name in Trickster's Trickster's interlude. All of fucking 17 is Trickster's interlude. When Trickster's talking to Accord, and Accord's like, I kind of want you to take care of this guy for me. He's talking about Blasto. But because of shit that's gone on, and like the 9 being in Boston, Blasto and Accord have, well, in Accord, they have an understanding where Accord's like, cool. You have a lab. You can go in there. You can blah, 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 blah. I've got some samples for you. My ambassadors will watch you. Just make sure I never have to see you, because if I see you, I might just murder you. But with that understanding, do what you gotta do. So Blasto can make clones of people through plants. It's like he can make homunculi, like, I think through fungi. And if he has a sample of a person or their DNA, he can tinker with that and try and make a version of them. Like, it takes a while, but he can do it. And I think that's just neat as fuck. Accord also gives him, like, one of the Seamerg's feathers. So it's like, oh, he's, like, trying to basically make a baby Endbringer. And that's neat as fuck. While this is going on, the 9 attack Boston. Accord's place is hit. Most of his ambassadors die. Blasto's lab ends up getting raided by Bonesaw, who's like, oh, look at all the toys! Here, take your 2! I think you and I will be best friends! There's this really funny scene where, when she sees the Seamerg's feather, goes, no, even I'm not that crazy. Defiant ends up attacking, and he ends up fucking her up to the point where Bonesaw actually swears, which I was like, alright, that's actually kind of fun. That's wild. There is this description where Bonesaw gets, like, nearly cut in half, and it is described as her having a prehensile spine, and I'm just thinking to myself, what the fuck did I just read? She can manipulate her spine? What the fuck? And so she ends up, like, crawling onto Blasto and basically just, like, using him as a meat puppet so she can get around, and it was wild as fuck. As she's fighting Defiant, she's like, hey, I've got so many plagues in my body, dude. Like, if you kill me, they'll just go everywhere, and so many people might die. And he's like, look, I'm willing to risk that. Really? What about this dude in here? You'll kill him. And Defiant just looks at Blasto. He's a villain. It's an acceptable loss. Like, yeah, that's the Colin I know and love. But, Bonesaw is able to escape with now someone that could potentially, because that's right, because she's looking at, like, Accord's database. It's like, ooh, they have a lot of samples of us. Ooh, I can make, like, clones of him and clones of you and clones of you. I can get the family back together. Let's go. So she escapes with him, and then Defiant goes outside and finds Dragon, and then, like, one of the robot's jaws is the body of William Manton. You're like, oh, Siberian's dead. Holy shit, Siberian's dead. That's fucking huge. I guess with all the samples, it might not matter, but that's still a victory, I suppose. And I remember when I was reading 17, and that scene with Trickster and Accord, I'm like, okay, this guy seems, like, kind of interesting, but he's all the way in Boston. I think this is just, like, neat world building, and this dude's not going to be important. So then reading this interlude, I was like, oh, we're visiting him again. Maybe he's about to be important. Never mind. I think he just died, and, like, all of his people did. It was just cool world building. And then we get to Arc 20, and I'm like, oh, no, he's a mainstay of the story now. But I don't know. I just thought that was kind of neat and kind of fun. Then after that is the Parahumans Online, which is just, it's just like a message board, a lot of people interacting and talking about the situation. You've got people talking about, like, you know, like the badge of honor it is, like, to have stayed in Brockton Bay through all of this, but some people fake staying in Brockton Bay so they get internet clout and they're pieces of shit. You got message boards about what's going on in the PRT, how a lot of people are leaving, a lot of people are stepping down, there seems to be some kind of shit. You've got members of the wards actively talking, well, it's like, yeah, I left the wards. I don't have any beef with, like, the PRT as a whole. It's fine. And some people are like, huh, he didn't say he's cool with the people in charge, blah, blah, blah. you've got one thread of people talking about, like, people that they've lost, and then, like, Vista talks about some of the people she lost. She's like, don't, like, DM me about it. I just, like, needed to vent. There's a thread about Skitter. There's a thread, at one point there was a thread, and it was something like, hey, could I, like, be a super, like, could I work for a supervillain? Because I love dogs. I would love to work for Bitch. And someone's saying, okay, you could. Don't work for her. That's a terrible idea. Just shit like that. It was really neat. And it ends with Greg, who I remember, he was in, I don't know if it was Arc 1 or, like, Arc 2, but I remember Taylor talks about having to do this group project. She's like, okay, I'm with the other losers, and I know I'm a loser. These guys are losers. And one of them was Greg. And Greg, he's reading the Skitter thread, and his brain just kind of, like, he has a brain blast, and he realized, holy fuck, this is Taylor Hebert. I know who Skitter is. Everything fits. If I could find out who Skitter is, other people might know who she is. I need to do something about this. That's how it ends. And then you get the actual ending of Arc 19. Interlude Emma. Something I have been looking forward to since Chapter 1 of Arc 1. And let me start by offering a formal apology to Taylor. Because I had said early on, I was like, look, she does not deserve any of the shit that these bitches are doing to her. But this level of venom from Emma does not come from nowhere. Taylor, what did you do? Maybe it's something that she, like, it, to her it was so minor she doesn't realize it, or she's kind of conveniently forgot what she was. Like, what did you do to Emma to make her hate you? So I have to formally apologize because she didn't do shit. There is a reason I was right, but it's Taylor adjacent. It is not Taylor's fault. Which makes me feel even more bad for her in hindsight. Because again, I was like, this is fucking awful, but there's nothing you could have done to deserve this. But there's some kind of reason. Right, like, is there some kind of mitigating circumstances for the other side? Nope, awful, horrible, fuck you, I'm sorry. So, Emma's backstory is she was attacked by members of the ABB. She was nearly mutilated, nearly killed. There was the potential of sexual assault that didn't quite happen, but very, very much could have. And she was very mentally scarred by this, as you would fucking imagine. And before it happened, she's on the phone with Taylor, who's away at summer camp, and she's like, Taylor is just talking about the most inane bullshit right now, and I'm so happy she is. Ever since she lost her mom, she has not been the same person. And honestly, it's been hard being her friend. It's been kind of a drag. And I feel terrible for thinking that. But it's true. But seeing that she's okay, that she's coming back from it, I'm so happy I stuck with her because she's my girl and I love her. Then she gets attacked. And as the attack is going on, she's just thinking about Taylor and how fucked up her friend was after this. And is just thinking to herself, do not end up like Taylor. Do not end up like Taylor. You cannot become Taylor because I'm too weak to come back from that. Then she gets saved by Shadowstalker, who was there for a while just watching, and then finally got involved, did Shadowstalker things, and left. And Emma's alone for a while. I mean, like, she goes back home. Her family is, like, doing whatever they can, but she just can't interact with them. Understandably so. And she goes back to the spot of her assault. And she meets up with Shadowstalker again. I believe she was out of costume. And they have a conversation. Sophia's essentially saying to her, There's two kinds of people in the world. There's predator and there's prey. And when someone goes through the kind of shit you went through, they become a victim or they become a survivor. The fact that you came back here so soon, you're a survivor. You're one of the strong ones. You're not just prey, you can be a predator. And Emma, at this point, basically becomes her, I don't really know what the word for this is. I guess like her second in command, like, you're the superhero doing all the cool shit. I'm your human friend who knows about the cool shit you do and can just offer assistance when possible. Like, there's a bit where Shadowstalker gets injured, and she calls up Emma, and Emma's like, okay, Dad, I need your help with something, no questions asked. Her dad's like, sure. So, they go take care of Sophia. So he knows, like, who Shadowstalker... I don't remember if Shadowstalker was in costume or not, but he is aware, like, okay, my daughter is, like, best friends with a hero. Could probably put two and two together. I assume as a lawyer, he's able to make that connection. When Taylor comes back from summer camp, she's just so excited. She's like, I'm going to go see my best friend. We're going to get to talk. We're going to get to hang out. But Sophia's there, and Sophia just, like, pushes her, insults her, trips her. Sophia's just... I fucking hate Sophia. She's just awful. Emma just breaks up with her right then and there. And it's just kind of like, Taylor, I don't want to be your friend. It's been so hard being your friend the past year, and I didn't want to break up with you then because I didn't know how you would take it, but... You seem fine enough now, and I don't really care enough, so I'm breaking up with you. And she's talking about it, and she's like, it's so easy to say this. I don't like how easy this is. Like, when I'm talking about how hard it was being her friend, how frustrating it was being her friend, it's true, and it flows so easily, but, like, this is my best friend, and I love her, and I care about her, but... I can't do this. Like, she has that moment where it's, if I stick with Taylor and tell her about what happens, she will make me feel okay and loved and comforted. And I really want that. But I don't think that's what I need. I want to be one of the strong ones, so I have to let her go. And what do you know, in hindsight of, like, all of Arc 21, cutting ties. Huh. Well, that's really sad to think about in hindsight, but okay. So, and you see the bullying. From Emma's perspective, at least early on, was... I want to make Taylor strong. If I can bully her, if I can push her, I can make her fight back. I can make her grow a spine. Like, there's a point where it's like her mom's flute was taken. She's like, Emma, like, can you give it back? I want my thing back. And Emma's being a real piece of shit about it. Like, well, if it was that important to you, you shouldn't have brought it to school. What does that even say about you that you would bring it? I think it says more about you than it does about me. And like, as she's talking to her, she's talking so much shit to Taylor, she's just thinking to herself, come on, Hebert, fight back. Say something, hit me, stand up for yourself, come on. Be a survivor, you can do it, I believe in you. I need to see you strong. And Taylor just can't do it. And I remember the way it was described, too. She's like, like the rush anytime I was bullying her and was in the moment, but there was no enjoyment. That was it. It wasn't the rush. It was how she felt afterwards. She's like, it's like withdrawal without the high. I don't necessarily love what I'm doing, but I hate how I feel after I do it. And I mask that by doing it again, which, I don't know, maybe that's guilt for being an awful fucking person to your best friend for years. It's her mentality. How do I want to say this? I think Emma's mentality is actually kind of interesting. There's a victim and a survivor, and I want to be a survivor because I've seen what it is to be a victim. I have seen how miserable that is, and I've seen what it's like to be around a victim. I've had to do that, and it's awful. I don't think I could come back from being Taylor, and I don't want to put people in the situation that I've been in having to deal with Taylor. But I don't want to get rid of Taylor completely because she's important to me. But if I can build her up, I have the best of both worlds. But Taylor's just not built like that. At least not at that point. So Emma was just awful to her. And it seemed, again, to me, it was kind of like, as it went on, it went from, I want to build you up, into, I just want to bring you down. Like, if you're not going to rise to the occasion, then I guess you can be there with the bugs. And, what a fucking experience that was to read. And there's a scene of her going to see Shadowstalker in Juvie, and she's like, hey, so, sucks to suck. Looks like you're one of the victims after all, Sophia. Which, I hate Sophia, so that was kind of awesome to read. Like, I don't want to give Emma her credit after that, but, I mean, I gotta give her something. And, that's basically how the arc ends. Oh, with also the, like, school's going to be starting back up. Emma and her family have now moved back into Brockton Bay. Which I thought they already were, because there was that scene a few arcs ago with Brandish? Yeah, it was Brandish, not Photon Mom. Talking to Alan, which is Emma's dad. So it might have been that he moved back a little bit before his family to kind of make sure it was okay for the family to move back, which also means I don't get to see Emma as one of Taylor's flunkies, because I kind of wanted to see, I wanted to see Emma interact with Skitter. In the next arc, you get her interacting with Taylor, which in that arc is kind of the same thing in its own weird way. But just, like, meeting Skitter and trying to, like, suck up to her, and Skitter having none of it, I think would have been really interesting. But alas, given what we get in Arc 20, I am not going to fault Wildblow for that at all. This chapter, what I was expecting in some regard, okay, I was expecting to read Emma's interlude and find her a lot, like, maybe not like the most sympathetic character, but there to be sympathy. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't get that. But she's still a piece of shit. And while I can understand her perspective, yeah, it does not justify anything she fucking did. And I'm glad it doesn't really justify anything she did. This arc was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I'm glad I finally got to make this ding-dang video on it. Maybe later today or like earlier tomorrow. Early tomorrow, I can do the video on Arc 20. But that's it for now.